What an absolute wild game in Glendale, Arizona. But the Jaguars did their job. They got a win, and now they need to just get on the plane and get out of there before something bad happens.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
As a fact, man, it is your team every day, and we are the number one sports podcast network that is Locked On Podcast Network, and Locked On Jaguars is a part of that. And we welcome you and glad that you make us your first listen here on a wild Sunday from Glendale, Arizona. The Jacksonville Jaguars win 27-24. We'll get into everything that happened in today's game. Unreal, man. Unreal game. Absolutely unreal. First, we got to let you know that wherever you watch or get your podcast, we are there. Make sure you tap in so you do not miss an episode each and every day. This is a wild game, man. Let me tell you what we're going to do. We got two halves of this post-game show. They need to just get on the plane. I'm going to start there, by the way. Get on the plane. Questions and answers. Something I call the Great Escape. And now here we go. We're going to talk about the Great Escape. I was dumbfounded watching that game today because the Jaguars came out on their first drive. And this wasn't just the Trevor Lawrence experience. This was the Jacksonville Jaguars experience. They came out, had maybe the cleanest, most beautiful four-play, 90-plus yard something drive I'd ever seen. And then things started to fall apart. Then they gave up a pick, fumble, pick six, whatever you want to call it. Trevor held on to the ball a little bit too long, but they didn't see the blitz, and they didn't see the blitz the entire first half. Arizona, it looked like they were on a bit of a roll. The Jaguars go into the locker room down 14-10, come out in the second half, walk right down the field, commit another turnover. It turns out it was a tip ball. The defense, though, stepped up. And something that I will point out about this game, after halftime, if you take away that last scoring drive of Arizona, after halftime, the Jaguars' offensive line and defensive line took this game over. And the defense was playing lights out. They took over and dominated the game. The Jaguars just kept making mistakes in the form of interceptions. It got to the point where I stopped tweeting about the interceptions and stopped posting about the interceptions, mainly because it would start an argument with the truthers, and people think that you're just chasing and trying to click something when it comes to Trevor Lawrence. The first one was it wasn't his fault. Maybe it held on a little too long, but he has to just understand. The second one wasn't his fault. The ball got tipped. The thing is though, these things just keep happening in the passing game. But Liam Cohen didn't listen to the advice of a lot of people on social media that said just run it. People, including me, Liam Cohen, nope. He's going to keep throwing it. That's his quarterback. He's going to keep throwing it, and that's exactly what they did today. And they kept getting it picked off until they got down 21 to what was it? 21 to 17. No, it's 17-14. They got down 17-14. And they were up 17-14. Let me correct that. They needed to go down and score. They were down 21-17. That's what it was. Trevor Lawrence turned back into the Trevor Lawrence that does not seem like he is ever nervous at the end of a game. And he whipped the Jaguars right down the field with some precision passing, and they scored a touchdown. And I'm thinking, that is like the whole thing that I keep telling people with Trevor. Never said he couldn't play. I just said the variance in his play goes up and down. And to the people that never see him play in these late games, this is what we keep saying. It's just he has tremendous talent. He just makes tremendous decisions and mistakes. And doing that won't ever allow this team to be great. And then Liam Cohen didn't help at the end of the game when he could have iced the game. It was almost a similar situation to Cincinnati. And he said it was 100% go. So he went for it then. It backfired. He went for it again. He said, nope, 100% go. Not quite the same situation because Arizona didn't have as far to go as Cincinnati did, but pretty much a similar situation. This time they actually were able to keep the Arizona Cardinals out of the end zone, and Arizona did kick the field goal, as opposed to against the Bengals, where the Bengals actually did score a touchdown. So that's going to be discussed ad nauseum over and over again. The thing is though, I can't complain when all I said is just win the game and get on the plane. Even if it's with a walk-off field goal, man, just get on the plane, come home. So the Jaguars are 7-4. I guess in the second half of this, what we'll do is we'll go through some numbers. We'll crunch some numbers and give you some statistics from this game, individual stats, as well as some team stats. And we're going to give away a game ball. I'm going to give away a game ball because I think it's appropriate that the game ball goes to number 11, Parker Washington. We're going to do all of that in just a second here in the second half of a victorious Sunday. In a weird way, the Jacksonville Jaguars are now 7-4. We'll discuss the playoffs and all of those things in just a second in the second half here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Prize Picks. Man, listen, this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports, bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's happening at one time here in the next several weeks. And while we're making all our choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections. Look in your lineup and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Prize Picks adds a layer of excitement to the holiday sports schedule. You make sure you get in on it because you can win you some money. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in bonus bets after you play your first $5 lineup. That's $50 in lineups. That's code Locked On NFL to get $59 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. And today's show is also sponsored and brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout is a real frustrating process. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is easy, fast, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so you do not get jacked up when it's time to check out with fees you did not see. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. I bet a lot of people did today because I heard there was a lot of Jags in Glendale. I'll say it again. Terms apply again. That's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time. And download Game Time today. All right, man, we're moving and grooving and rolling along here on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. We thank you guys for making us your first listen. We are the #1 sports podcast network here at the Locked On Podcast Network. We appreciate it. Look, man, questions and answers will come about the play that Liam Cohen, when he did not take the field goal, about Trevor and who was right or wrong with the interceptions. But here is the most important thing. The most important thing today is the Jaguars won this game and got on that plane and got smacked out of Glendale, Arizona. And they had to, man, because I'm going to go through some team stats here. And Jacoby Brissett had a day now. We'll get to his individual numbers here just in a second. He had 317 yards passing. Trevor had 256. No running game really from Arizona. They did get a couple of situational runs that absolutely helped them out a little bit, but they had 55 yards rushing. The Jaguars went for 134. Most of that was Travis Etienne with 86. Brenton Strange made a huge comeback with 93 yards receiving. Devin Lloyd had 1.5 sacks. Josh Allen had 7,000 pressures, it seemed like. And, of course, Foye Oluokun led this team with 10 tackles. But the key for all of this is this game was close because of 3 thrown interceptions and 4 total turnovers, man. The Jaguars tried to give it away. They absolutely appeared to be trying to give it away. They had the ball for 28 minutes today instead of 37 for Arizona. So, shout out to Parker Washington. We're going to give Parker Washington a little love, man, because he made big plays in the kicking game. Looked like he made a boneheaded play in the kicking game, but it really wasn't. He knew the rule. I just hate when herky-jerky stuff like that happens. And the reason why is because then it opens the door for a whole bunch of other herky-jerky stuff. And it seems like that's exactly what happened because the game got really, really weird. In the second half where the Jaguars offensive line, they must have got yelled at halftime because they came out in the second half and they took this game over. And so did the defensive line and the entire defense. The defensive backs were buzzing in that second half. But when they needed them the most, man, these dudes, I'm telling you, they need Jordan Lewis back in a hurry. They need Eric Murray back. Hopefully he comes back before the end of the year because they ran split safeties and got beat on a play that they should not have gotten beaten on. The defense does need some help with situational football, but they just got to play more complimentary football and stop turning the ball over. We're going to look at Parker Washington. 5 catches, 71 yards, and a tutty. He just looks like he always is where he needs to be. Jacoby Myers with another 4 catches for 50 yards. But like I said, Brenton Strange, 5 with 93. I almost wanted to give it to him, man, because on that last drive when they really needed big plays, they went to Brenton Strange and they got it. I think we all going to get together and have a little conversation with Tim Patrick. Tell him to turn around and look for the ball. Another bad penalty on a sack, this time on, I believe it was on Devin Lloyd. On a sack earlier in the game. The Jaguars, they continue to be the team that gets punished for this BS when they're not really putting their weight on people. But it is what it is, man. 7-4. Now they've gone to 6th place. They moved ahead of the Chargers because the Chiefs also beat the Colts, and we kind of want the Colts to lose. The Jaguars are only 1 game back in the division with 2 games left against the Colts. The Steelers lost, so now the Ravens are in 1st place, and so the Steelers aren't in the wild card right now. And then you still have Kansas City 1, so they're game back. Houston is still hanging around Jacksonville. They're game back of Jacksonville. That's why, even though they tried to get his game away and they did everything and they did enough stuff for us to talk about that we're going to talk about on Locked On Jaguars tomorrow, it is easier to have these conversations when they're 7-4, as opposed to if they were 6-5. If they were 6-5, we'd be talking about them being out of the playoff picture, at least at this juncture. If they had to start the playoffs right now, they would be out of it if they had lost this game. And then we'd all be wondering where they're going because the world would have come down on Liam Cohen, and they're going to come down on him anyway. And the world would have come down on Trevor Lawrence, and they're going to come down on him anyway. But they both dialed it in and did what they had to do to win. Anthony Campanile had his defense, even though at the end of the game it looked pretty shaky in the regulation and in overtime for a second. They were humming in the second half. So whatever halftime adjustments or get your butt in line speech that they did, it worked, and it really, really worked for the Jacksonville Jaguars on both sides of the ball early. Those turnovers will be killers. And I know everybody's sitting there. I see all your comments. People just really don't trust Trevor Lawrence at this stage. That's all they're talking about. They escape regardless of the picks, the ball placement. Let's see, it's atrocious 70% of the time, no matter what the hell the scheme has been. So folks are already arguing about Trevor, man. Trevor sucks and all of this stuff. Look, they won the game. They're 7-4. Got a lot of questions that have to be answered. The good thing is the team looks at every single throw, every single thing that happened, every single reason why. And they don't have to make it. You don't have to just trust what you see in a blanket, you know what I'm saying, or in a vacuum, like people say. You can really go through and break it down one by one and see what is correctable. But I'd rather be doing that at 7-4 than 6-5. And you got the Titans this week who gave somebody else a headache today, but that's another tough game. The Jaguars have to first learn how to win, but then they also have to beat teams that they're supposed to beat. They should have won this game today by at least 14 to 17 points, and they didn't because of those turnovers. They didn't get any turnovers. And this is against a team that had a whole bunch of backups operating on offense. They did clamp down, though, on Trey McBride in the second half, and that was good. It's good to see him make a nice positive adjustment. And as I said all last week, starting Thursday on the crossover with Alex Clancy, and then Friday, and I will say it again today, get on the plane, come home, celebrate, say all of the coach speak you want about how you have to clean it up, and we have to eliminate mistakes and play complementary football, and that it's 100% go on the play where you don't choose to kick a field goal. All of that, I want you to go ahead and get all of that stuff out of your system, because I know it's what we're going to do. Somebody saying the Jags didn't beat themselves with penalties. I have no idea what you're talking about, man. I really don't. But congratulations, Pierce Ears. Shout out to you, and go ahead and win your game. I know that there's the one tip pass. This is never about one throw with me. And I think sometimes people think it is. It's not. No matter what is said on social media, it's not about one throw. We're going to go through all of that on Locked On Jaguars. Here's what I want y'all to do. I want y'all to get something and put something in y'all's cup. And I want y'all to enjoy, this is ginger ale, by the way, but I want y'all to enjoy this victory, enjoy the spot that they're in. They're 7-4. And we're going to dissect all of this stuff tomorrow and the rest of this week on Locked On Jaguars as we get ready to celebrate Thanksgiving. You guys, thank you for joining us here. The Locked On Jaguars is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, Locked On NFL, which is a part of the #1 sports podcast network. Glad to see y'all here with me today. We'll see you tomorrow on Locked On Jaguars, probably about 10 o'clock after I digest all of this stuff. We'll make sure we get you a good show put together, and we'll talk about the mistakes as well as some of the good things that they did today. But look, they won. Take it. We'll argue and debate about everything tomorrow. The Jaguars are 7-4, and we should all be happy about it. We'll see you later here on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every single day. We thank you for making us your first listen.